So the question is, why do your drum mixes sound like this? When they should be sounding like this. Well, the answer is simple. You're probably making one of these 4 critical, crucial mistakes with your drum mixing. But the good news is that it's easy to overcome, and I will show you exactly how in this detailed, but to the point, tutorial. Let's dive into it. All right, so there are a ton of misconceptions out there when it comes to mixing drums, specifically drums that are recorded in maybe a home studio. The truth is, when you are recording and mixing in a home studio, generally you're pretty isolated, and most people have no idea what pro producers actually do within a mix. And today we are talking specifically about drums, and I'm going to highlight 4 mistakes that you're probably making if your drum recordings and mixes sound amateur. And again, I'm going to show you how you can combat these mistakes and get the results that you really want. I also want to say that the song that you are about to hear was recorded in my low budget project studio with an outdated Firewire interface, the Digio 2 by DigiDesign. So if I can get these results in my low budget project studio with cheap mics using old plugins, I can guarantee that you can achieve the same results if you focus on the right things. Okay, mistake number 1 that I hear people making over and over again when they send me their mixes to critique is they are not whacking their snares hard enough with compression. Let's take a listen to this mix. Okay, so this right here is my channel strip on my live snare drum, and look at how much gain reduction is taking place in the compressor. So around 9 to 12 dB of gain reduction. That's a lot. Most people are too timid when it comes to compression, and they're scared to maybe compress their drums too hard. But if you're into modern record production, even record production that was done in the 70s and 80s, whack that snare and don't let it scare you. A lot of times I hear these cardboard box sounding snare drums that sound odd and just unprofessional. And a lot of times the mixes that people send me feature snare drums that are just not compressed heavily enough. So keep this in mind. 9 dB, 12 dB, I don't even care. Sometimes 20 dB. If it sounds good, it is good. Okay, mistake number 2 that I hear people making all the time, and I've been guilty of this, is you might be overdoing your drum bus compression or underdoing your drum bus compression. Let me explain. Now, the mix you just heard is pretty organic sounding, pretty open sounding. I didn't want the drums to sound like they were all squashed together. And because of this, I'm not really using any bus compression on my drums. In this case, I've opted to not use any parallel compression, and I'm mainly only relying on a little bit of subtle tape saturation and console emulation. Now, if this were more of a modern, gent style production that's super squashed and super crazy loud and super distorted, then I would probably be using some form of drum bus compression, most definitely parallel compression. And I'm not doing this here. The point I want to drive home is you want to match your approach with the aesthetic that you're going for. If you want your drums to sound more organic and open, don't overcompress your drums submix. It's just gonna squash all of your drums together. And vice versa, if you want your drums to sound very modern, very compact, especially if everything is edited to death and you want them to compete with other super modern, super mechanical sounding productions, then go crazy with that drum bus compression. But don't haphazardly apply one or the other just because you think you should. Practice caution with your drum bus compression. Okay, and the next one is a big one, and it's really simple. You're just not using room microphones effectively. And by not using them effectively, I mean, you're probably just ignoring them in the mix and maybe not even recording them in the first place, which is a massive, massive mistake. Remember, when you close mic your drums, you're recording each of the individual components in and of themselves, which is great. Gives you a lot of control. You can compress the individual elements, EQ the individual elements, balance the individual elements. The problem is you will often lack glue around your kit. So in this example, I am blending in a stereo room with the individual close mics, and that is gluing the sound of my kit together, even though I'm not using any drum bus compression. That's a common misconception, is people are always obsessed about the compression and EQ and MS processing and parallel compression and parallel gating, looking for shortcuts, when in reality you should be paying attention to the source that you're recording and thinking about the mix before you even set up a single microphone. And then of course, if maybe you're mixing a project where there is a room mic, don't ignore it. Have fun with it, crank it up, see if it helps to blend the sound of your drum kit together, and don't overthink it. This isn't rocket science. I've just found that so many of the mixes that people send me, the drums sound weirdly dry. And a lot of times people try to make up for it again with compression, and a lot of times with a ton of reverb, which could be cool if you're mixing an 80s record. But if you're not, lean on that room mic. Don't let it freak you out. It's honestly one of my secrets that I use to achieve the drum sounds that I achieve in my budget project studio. And it doesn't cost any extra money. Okay, and the one that drives me crazy, when I hear people send me their mixes is they're going for that dumb traditional overhead thing over their drum kit. Now, if you're mixing indie rock, country, jazz, I do the same thing. A lot of times I'll stick up a stereo pair of overheads, whether they're small diaphragm condensers or large diaphragm condensers. And I go for a nice, magical blend of the whole kit. Also, the drummer has to be really good in these situations as well. But if you are producing hard rock or metal, don't think of your overheads as overheads. Think of them as cymbal microphones. Now, because I generally think of my overheads as cymbal microphones, I'm not scared of getting rid of a ton of low end and lower mids that are just gonna muck up my drum sound. So for example, if we check out these drums, this right here is my cymbal EQ. And I'm using the exact same EQ on both of my main overhead tracks and my ride cymbal, and even my hi-hat. I'm rolling off all frequencies below 1.3K. Now, I already hear people complaining in the comments saying, oh, I want my snare to sound awesome in the overheads. I like to blend the sound of my kit in the overheads. If that works for you, good for you. This generally does not work for me. I get the punch out of the direct mics, I glue the sound of my kit with the room mic, and then I just want the cymbals out of the overheads for heavy music. I don't want to confuse you. If I'm doing jazz or something like R&B or funk or something like that, different story. But when it comes to super thick drum sounds that have to be crystal clear where you hear every single little cymbal hit, I EQ my cymbals like this. And just to show you how extreme this is, I'm actually going to bypass this EQ on both of my overheads. Here's what they sound like without the EQ. Listen to how much cleaner the overheads sound. Now, mind you, this was recorded 10 years ago before I even really knew how to track drums properly, and I'm still achieving a passable result by utilizing the right mindset and the right techniques for carving out the crap on my overheads that I don't need. Yeah, this is a huge mental block for so many people. Again, I'll get these mixes where I can clearly hear there's just too much stuff going on in the overheads, and I'll ask people, why don't you just carve out more? And they'll say, well, won't that hurt my snare sound? Won't that mess with the phase? That's another thing I found. People often are needlessly obsessed with phase when it comes to drums when they shouldn't be, in most cases. The truth is that so much of your final results that you achieve in your home studio come down to how well you understand basic EQ and compression. And because of this, and as a thank you for watching this video, I'm giving you access right now for absolutely free to my crisp and clear heavy mix formula. The crisp and clear heavy mix formula is my EQ and compression cheat sheet in the form of a PDF guide. It contains all my starting points, again, for EQ and compression for all of the main instruments within a heavy production. There are also clickable links to private tutorials with multi-track downloads so you can practice the exercises along with me. The crisp and clear heavy mix formula is absolutely free right now, and you can have direct access by clicking the link below in this video's description. Now, if you're struggling with your drum recording and your drum mixes in your home studio, you can click the card above to watch me record pro level drums with a cheap, low budget USB interface and cheap microphones as well in a really bad sounding room. It can totally be done. You again have to have the right mindset and use the right techniques and workflows, and you can achieve album quality drum tracks in any environment. And I'm going to be sharing a lot more of this type of content on this channel. If you found this video helpful, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to click that little bell icon so you can be notified every single time I upload weekly videos on all things metal rock production. And until next time, happy mixing.